You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look me better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of What If Naruto Enters Totally Spies? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of KFB Anime 87 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Later at lunch, Himawari walked into the cafeteria and got into line for her food, and after making her order and getting her order number to put on her table she looked around for a free table. "Hey Himawari, right?" a voice called out, getting her attention, and when Himawari looked she saw that it was the Akimichi girl waving her over to her table where she was sitting with the Uchiha girl. Himawari smiled at this and walked over to the table and sat down across from the Akimichi and Uchiha girls. "Thank you for inviting me to sit with you," she said formally before she put her order number on the table so the waiters could bring her lunch. Thick got chuckles from the two girls. "You can call us by our names. I'm Chocho and this is Sarada," the bigger girl said with a smile at Himawari. "Hello," Sarada said as she adjusted her glasses. Himawari nodded at them both before some food hit her in the back of the head, and when she looked behind her she saw Candy and her friends turning away from them trying to look innocent. "Ugh, Candy Rossi, she is always messing with us, and I guess you now that you're sitting with us," Chocho said with an annoyed look at the girls. "Why are they messing with you?" Himawari asked curiously as she shook the thrown food out of her hair. "Her and her friends aren't fans of my family since they are important and easily got me into this school when it was harder for them," Sarada said as she sighed and shook her head. Himawari tilted her head at this and looked at Candy's table, who was glaring at Sarada. "Stupid Uchiha snob thinking she's better than me," she read from her mind. "Ah, here comes our food," Chocho said with a smile as the waiters approached their tables and gave them their food. Later at recess, Himawari walked out to the playground and looked around for Chocho and Sarada, but before she could spot them her way was blocked by Candy and her friends. "Listen new kid, I'm gonna give you a chance to join group instead of being the minion of that Uchiha snob," Candy said with a smug grin. Himself blinked at this, surprised at this offer, but before she could answer, "Candy, leave her alone, she's not interested in being a mindless minion of yours," Sarada said as she and Chocho approached them, getting their and the rest of their school year's attention. Candy scowled at this as she glared at Sarada. "Stay out of this, Uchiha," she yelled before she approached Sarada and pushed her hard, causing her to fall to the ground. This caused some students to gasp and Chocho to approach Sarada to help her up. "Now, as I was saying, this is your only chance to dash," Candy was saying to Himawari, who was looking at her with a cold look that was a little unsettling. "Lock on," Himawari said with a firm tone before she looked to the right away from Candy. "Huh? What are you looking at, new kid?" Candy was saying as she looked where Himawari was looking at before. Pow! Himawari slugged her in the cheek, sending her flying into her two friends and sending them all into the dirt. This got stunned silence from all the kids on the playground as they all looked at Himawari with their mouths agape. Candy looked up at Himawari from the dirt and held her cheek before. "Waiawa!" Candy cried as tears fell down her cheek. "What's going on?" Irika yelled as he made his way towards them. Himawari blinked and thought quick and said the first thing she could think of. "I was holding my fist out and she ran right into it," Himawari said as she pointed at Candy and her friends. "You little liar!" Candy's friends all yelled as Candy continued to cry. Later with Naruto. Naruto was sitting at table outside Malibu U, sitting with Sam, Alex and Clover, going over today's class assignment before he would head to Eden to pick up Himawari. Suddenly Naruto's phone buzzed and he picked it up. "Sorry ladies, I'll be back, it's Hima's school," Naruto said as he walked away from the table. "Hope Hima is doing okay," Alex said with a frown at this. "I'm sure it's not anything too bad," Sam said as Sheb put away her book in her backpack. Yeah, how much trouble can a 6-year-old get into? Clover asked as she looked at herself in her compact. Naruto soon approached the table with a frown on his face as he grabbed his backpack from the table. Something happened? Alex asked curiously. Hima got in a fight with a girl at school and slugged her in the face. They are calling in both kids' parents. Both me and Miss Rossi have to be there within the hour, Naruto said as he put on his backpack. Sam and Alex frowned at the fact that Himawari got in a fight. Clover on the other hand paused at the last name of the other girl's parent and smiled brightly as she realized who it was. Well, get going, we can text you notes later, Sam said to Naruto. Naruto nodded in gratitude at this before he took off running to his car. I can't believe little Hima would slug. Clover, why are you smiling like there is a 90% off sale? Alex was saying before she noticed Clover's big smile on her face. Cause little Hima slugged Candy Rossi, the little sister of Mandy, Clover said with a very happy tone of voice. Clover, just because she's is Mandy's little sister doesn't mean she's anything like Mandy, Alex said with a disapproving frown. You wanna bet money on that? Clover asked as she took out her purse. Sam and Alex groaned at this show of immaturity from their friend. With Naruto. Naruto walked into the principal's office of Eden Academy and saw Irika and Sarutobi waiting behind the desk while he spotted Himawari and who he assumed was the girl she got in a fight with sitting in chairs in front of the desk. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki, Sarutobi said, nodding at Naruto as he entered. Sorry for making you wait, Naruto said as he approached and looked at Himawari, who looked at the ground and wouldn't meet his eyes. Sorry for calling you here on her first day, but there was an incident and as soon as Miss Rossi's mother arrives I'll explain what happened, Irika explained. Not at all, you're Hima's teacher, right? Naruto asked as he sat down in an empty seat next to his daughter. Yes, Irika Yumano, Irika said, introducing himself, but before he could continue to speak. Where is the little brat who hit my daughter? A shrill female voice yelled out, making everyone in the room wince slightly at this. Ah, that would be Miss Rossi, Sarutobi said as he nodded at Irika, who nodded back and went to go get her. That's a woman. Sounds like a peacock having its neck broken, Naruto thought to himself as he rubbed his ears. Himawari heard this and slightly shook, trying not to giggle. Irika soon came back into the office accompanied by an older woman who had short black hair which reached her neck and she was wearing what looked like expensive and fashionable clothes. This was Phoebe Rossi, Candy's mother. Mommy! Candy yelled out, seeing her mother as she removed the ice bag from her cheek, showing the bruise on her cheek. Whoa, my little Hima did that? Who knew she was a thug? Naruto thought to himself, seeing this as he tried not to be impressed. Oh my god! Candy, what happened? Phoebe yelled out as she ran to her daughter. The new kid slugged me in the face like a common thug. Candy yelled as she pointed at Himawari. Phoebe turned and glared at Himawari at this, who looked down at the ground nervously. Miss Rossi, you know that's not the full story we got from both the witnesses and the security cameras at the playground, Sarutobi said firmly to Candy. Wait, what actually happened then? Naruto asked curiously as he was glad this school had a reputation to get all the facts with every incident. It would seem Miss Rossi is who provoked this incident by pushing Miss Uzumaki's friend to the ground, Irika said with a frown. Oh, for crying out loud, Candy, are you starting incidents with that Uchiha girl again? I told you you don't need to be better than her, sweetheart, you just have to do good, Phoebe said with a frown as she looked at her daughter. Candy frowned at this and clenched her fists in frustration. Uchiha? Is there a Uchiha at this school? DMN it, Shika, you're slipping on your background checks. Naruto thought to himself in surprise at this reveal. Seeing as technically Miss Uzumaki threw the first punch but only after Miss Rossi hurt her friend, I'm willing to be lenient with her, but I won't be understanding again. We can't have our students fighting like this, Sarutobi said firmly as he looked at Naruto and Himawari. Of course, while I understand why she did what she did, I'll be sure to try and teach her better ways to deal with this kind of thing before resorting to throwing punches, Naruto said as he nodded before he patted Himawari on the head. Sweetie, apologize. But Papa, Himawari was saying as she looked up at this. Himawari, Naruto said firmly as he gave her a look that said he wouldn't accept any excuses. Himawari looked at Candy, who looked at her with a smug at this. I'm sorry I hit you, she said through grit teeth. Good now Candy, you say you accept her apology, Phoebe said firmly. What? Candy yelled, surprised at this as she looked at her mother with a look of shock. You heard me. Phoebe yelled back with a firm look at her daughter. Phoebe growled at this before she looked at Himawari, who had her own smug look on her face now. I accept your apology, she growled out. Very good, you both will be getting a warning, but rest assured if an incident like this happens again you will serve a after-school detention, Sarutobi said firmly to the two children. Yes sir, Himawari and Candy said together, showing the man some respect. Good, now let's go. Candy, your sister is coming home for dinner tonight and we need to get ready, Phoebe said as she grabbed Candy's hand and led her out of the office. Sweetie, can you wait for me outside with Mr. Iruka? Naruto asked Himawari. Okay Papa, Himawari said as she followed Iruka out of the office. I'm sorry for what happened on her first day, Naruto said as he looked at Sarutobi. Not at all Mr. Uzumaki, they are children and these things happen sometimes, Sarutobi said as he waved his hand as he had seen this a lot in his years at the school. I can't believe she would throw a punch like that. I believe sometimes children react like that when they make new friends and want to protect them. Perhaps joining a after-school activity with her fellow students will help her develop better social skills, Sarutobi said as he pointed at the wall where there were some flyers for after-school activities. They have those for kids now? Naruto asked, surprised as he knew middle schoolers and high schoolers had after-school activities but not elementary school students. Well, we try to have activities for students of all ages. The students in your daughter's age group activates meet on the weekends. Here you can look this over and see if there are any activities you feel your daughter may enjoy, Sarutobi said as he handed Naruto a pamphlet. Naruto nodded at this before he left the office. Later at the park. Naruto parked his car in the parking lot while Himawari sat in the back seat of the car looking down at her hands and not wanting to meet his eyes. Naruto sighed as he thought about what he should do next, as he wanted to make sure he handled this in the right way. Am I gonna be grounded forever? Himawari asked nervously. Naruto sighed at this as he turned to look at her. No honey, you're not gonna be grounded forever. You know what you did wrong, right? He asked. I was protecting my friend, Himawari said as she frowned as she thought about what happened. I know that honey, but your first instinct shouldn't be to lash out. But she pushed my friend to the ground. Himawari said with an annoyed tone. I know that. Tell me someone, what would have happened if you had waited to do something instead of just hitting her? Naruto asked, deciding to try and see if himself could see what he was trying to say. The teacher would have shown up to check on Sarada. Oh, Himawari said as she realized what would have happened. You understand now? Naruto asked with a smile at this, glad she was understanding. Yes Papa, if something happens at school tell a teacher or another adult, Himawari said with a nod at this. Good, now for your punishment, Naruto said as he nodded back. Himawari groaned at this bit, didn't complain. You will be doing a after-school activity which we will be deciding on later, and you will be not playing video games for 3 days, Naruto said firmly. Himawari frowned at this but nodded at this, knowing there was no way out of this. Good, now let's go home, Naruto said with a nod as he started the car and backed out of the parking lot. Papa, did you ever do something you shouldn't? Himawari asked curiously. Naruto paused at this and thought back to the past, and Himawari, who was reading his mind, saw an image of a young man who looked similar to Sarada. Papa? Himawari asked, hoping to get his attention. Yes I did, but I want you to do better, Naruto said simply as he focused on driving. Himawari said nothing to this but nodded as she thought about what she saw in her father's mind. Later at home. I wanna play. Himawari yelled as she ran into the house. After you're done with your homework you can play, Naruto said as he and Himawari walked into the house. Yes Papa, Himawari said as she went upstairs to go do her homework. And I'll be checking it before you can play. Naruto yelled up after her. Ga. Himawari yelled out at being caught before she kept running. Naruto sighed at this before he sat down on the sofa next to Shikamaru, who was reading a book. Tough day at work, honey? Shikamaru asked with a sarcastic tone of voice. Don't tempt me to bury you up to your neck in sand and wait to the tide to come in, Naruto said with an annoyed look at his friend. Oh touchy, fatherhood not working out? Shikamaru asked curiously as he looked up from his book. Nah, Himawari just got into a fight with a girl at school and I had to go in and I just got done talking to her in the car about getting an adult before resorting to slugging a girl in the jaw. Also remind me to tell Lee no showing Himawari his fighting anymore, Naruto said with a sigh. Himawari got in a fight? Shikamaru asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Yeah, left a big bruise on the girl's cheek too, but we made they both apologize to each other. What this other girl do to set her off? Shikamaru asked as he figured Himawari wouldn't just slug someone for nothing. Pushed her new friend into the ground, Uchiha, Naruto said with a firm tone as he looked at Shikamaru. Oh. Shikamaru asked with a raised eyebrow. Don't owe me you deciding to have but your background checks now? Naruto asked with a low tone so Himawari couldn't hear them if she came downstairs. Oh please, I knew from the get-go Uchiha went to Eden, Shikamaru said as he waved his hand dismissively. And you didn't tell me cause? Naruto asked curiously. Cause, said Uchiha, Sarada Uchiha that is being raised by the only good one, Shikamaru said with a firm look at Naruto. Ah, so Itachi is raising Sasuke's kid, Naruto said with a sigh of relief as he rubbed his forehead. Well, it's not like her dad can do it after what happened, Shikamaru said with a sigh of his own. Don't remind me, Naruto said as he scowled before Shikamaru flicked him in the forehead. From what my background check showed, Sarada is not her dad in any way, so if she is Himawari's friend you better act like an adult, Shikamaru said with a bored tone. Yeah, you're right, Naruto said as he rubbed his head. Shikamaru nodded at this and as he did there was a knock at the door. I'll get it, Naruto said as he got up and walked over to the door and opened it revealing Sam, Alex and Clover. Oh hey girls, he said greeting them. Don't hey me, details now. Clover said with an excited smile as she entered the house. Details? On what? Naruto asked with a curious tone. She wants to know about the fight Hima got into, Alex said as she rolled her eyes while she and Sam walked into the house. She slugged Mandy's little sister, let me have this. Clover yelled with a smile as she sat on the couch. Wait, the same Mandy you all have been butting heads with since you were in elementary school? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. The very same, and we have been telling Clover that this isn't a good thing with little success, Sam said with a roll of her eyes at her friend. Naruto groaned at this as he had indeed seen Mandy at school a few times and could see how she could grate on someone's nerves. Clover, please don't encourage Hima, I already have enough on my plate now. He sat back down and picked up the brochure Sarutobi gave him. Sam looked at the cover of the brochure curiously. You're looking to put her in a school activity? She asked curiously. Yeah, the principal thinks it will help her, Naruto said as he opened the brochure. I'm done with my homework. Himawari yelled as she came downstairs holding some papers. Good, I'll check it, Shikamaru said firmly as he got up. Himawari pouted at this as she knew Shikamaru was a perfectionist. Here sweetie, I'll help you correct your work, Sam said as she walked over and patted her on the head. Himawari smiled at this and nodded at Sam as she led her to the kitchen table nearby. Naruto smiled seeing this before he looked at the brochure. Geez, they have a lot of activities for kids these days, he said as he looked at the list and pictures. What are you gonna sign her up for? Karate? Clover asked curiously with a smile on her face. Oh, karate. Himawari yelled happily before she punched the air excitedly before Sam calmed her down before glaring at Clover. No karate, Naruto said firmly as he looked at the brochure. Himawari pouted at this but went back to her homework with Sam. If she's active maybe a sports team would be best, Alex said as she looked over Naruto's shoulder at the brochure. Why not track dash, Shikamaru was saying before he was cut off. Boring. Himawari and Clover yelled at Shikamaru. Don't be rude Hima, Sam said as she patted her on the head. Naruto nodded in agreement at this while nodding at Sam in thanks before he looked at the brochure again. A sport may be a good idea Shikamaru, but maybe something that is more team-based, he said. Shikamaru nodded at this as he could see the benefits of that. How's baseball sound Hima? Clover asked curiously as she looked at the brochure. That one with the bat. I don't want rabies. Himawari yelled as she shook her head at this. This got laughs from the girls and a chuckle from Naruto and Shikamaru. It's the one with the baseball bat SQR, Shikamaru said as he held up his phone which had an image of a baseball game being played. Oh, I get to take a swing at things with a big stick? Himawari asked with wide eyes at this. Naruto and Sam looked up at this as images of Himawari playing baseball and taking swings at the other players with a baseball bat played in their heads, causing them both to pale slightly before they both shook their heads. How about foot dash? Clover was asking before she was cut off. No, Naruto said firmly as he turned the page. It's touch football, Papa Bear, Shikamaru said with a roll of his eyes at Naruto being overprotective. I'm not encouraging her rough housing, Naruto said firmly as he turned the page on the brochure. Oh, they have soccer. Alex said with a smile as she grabbed the brochure from Naruto. What's that? Himawari asked Alex curiously, wondering what made her so excited. It's a great game, sweetie. I played it when I was a kid and I could help you, Alex said with a smile as she showed Himawari the pictures of kids playing soccer in the brochure. Oh, I want to play soccer like big sis Alex. Himawari yelled happily. Alex smiled brightly at this before she looked at Naruto, who had taken the brochure back. Okay, soccer it is, Naruto said as he nodded at Himawari and Alex. Yay! Himawari and Alex yelled together before Alex hugged Himawari. Naruto, Sam and Alex chuckled at this as they shook their heads. Good, you have an activity. Now I'm ordering dinner. Who wants dash? Pizza. Himawari yelled out as she held up her arms. You have already had pizza this week, sweetie, Sam said as she patted her on the head. Himawari pouted at this. Where is Lee anyway? Doesn't he usually cook? Alex asked Naruto curiously. He's busy at the garage. We got some new customers and he should be on his way home soon, barring he doesn't stop to help anyone who needs it, Shikamaru said as he looked at his phone and ordered some sandwiches for DLVRY before he texted Lee to see what she wanted. Hope he is okay, Clover said as she found Lee to be a nice guy even if he was a bit goofy. He will be fine, he's probably just helping someone fix their car, Naruto said with a smile as he knew Lee always liked to help people. Shikamaru nodded at this before he looked at his phone, seeing a message from Lee. He said with a surprised look. What is it? Sam asked curiously as she looked up from correcting Himawari's homework. Get this, Lee helped a girl with her car right when she was closing, and to thank him she's taking him to dinner at her family's place, even sent a picture, Shikamaru said as he chuckled as he showed everyone the picture on his phone. Unkai, Lee has a date? Himawari asked curiously. Apparently, Naruto said with a chuckle before he paused as he saw the photo. What, who is Lee? Clover was asking before she saw the picture and the girl Lee was with. Oh geez, Alex and Clover said as they pinched their noses at this. Earlier with Lee. Meanwhile with Lee, he was inside the auto garage he and Shikamaru had opened, and he was getting ready to close up for the day and head back to Naruto's place when he heard his phone go off, which he looked at, seeing a message telling him they were getting sandwiches delivered and they wanted to know what he wanted. As he thought about this, he heard a car approaching the garage and what sounded like the engine going off as the car stopped. Oh come on, you piece of junk, don't CRP out on me now, a young woman's voice yelled as what sounded like the car trying to start was heard. Lee, hearing this, quickly went outside and saw what looked like an expensive car parked outside of the garage and what looked like a young woman with long black hair in the driver's seat trying desperately to start her car, which was in vain seeing as there was smoke coming out of the trunk. Excuse me miss, do you need help? Lee asked as he approached, grabbing a toolbox from the garage as he did. Yes, I need help, you grease monk dash, the young woman was yelling before she looked at Lee, and her eyes widened in surprise as he approached her car and opened the trunk to take a look. Holy CRP, he's ripped, she thought to herself as Lee got to work on the car. Aha! There we go. Lee yelled with a smile as he tinkered with the engine before he took his head out of the hood of the car. Try it now miss, he said as he looked at the girl. Mandy Rossi, the girl yelled with a smile at Lee. You can try starting it now, Miss Mandy, Lee said with a smile. Mandy nodded at this as she turned the key on her car and started her car. It worked, she said with a smile as her engine started. Glad to see it, Miss Mandy. Now I need to head home for din dash. Oh no, I must pay you back for this. How about I treat you to dinner? My mom makes a great meal, Mandy said with a smile at Lee. Well, Lee was saying before he saw Mandy was giving him a begging look complete with big eyes and a quivering lip. Please? Mandy asked as her lip trembled. Okay, Lee said, feeling his will break as he wasn't one to say no to a pretty girl. Great. Let's go, cutie. Mandy said with a smile as Lee closed the trunk of her car. See, cutie? Lee asked, surprised at this before he smiled as he got into the passenger seat of Mandy's car before she quickly drove off. At the Uzumaki's. It was Saturday morning and Naruto was going over what was needed for Himawari's first day of soccer at Eden along with Shikamaru while Lee was getting breakfast ready. Meanwhile, said child was sitting at the breakfast table with some paper and crayons drawing a picture while she waited for breakfast. Uniform? Shikamaru said as he looked over a list while Naruto packed a duffel bag as he listed the items. Check, Naruto said as he put Himawari's uniform in the bag. Shoes? Shikamaru said. Got them, Naruto said as he put the item in the bag. Healthy snacks? Shikamaru asked. Got those too, Naruto said as he nodded as he pointed out the fruit slices and juice he had brought for today. Helmet? Shikamaru said with a slight smirk. Oh geez, I knew I forgot something. Hey, wait a minute. Naruto said as he looked around in a panic before he realized what his friend had said and looked at him annoyed. Like we will need a helmet. Hima is a good girl, right? Lee said as he approached the table and placed a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon in front of her. Only if Candy doesn't cross me, Himawari said as she grabbed her fork. Hima, Naruto said with a firm tone as he tried really hard not to laugh at his daughter's response. Himawari made a sour face at this as she knew she was expected to be good even if Candy went to soccer, according to Lee, who had heard this from Mandy. Shikamaru shook his head at this as they all sat down at the table to eat, but as he sat down he noticed the drawing Himawari had been making, which looked to be a drawing of what looked like a team of females and a robot fox fighting a bunch of monsters, while what looked like Himawari was hiding nearby with what looked like a robot and a guy in a white lab coat who had a pointy nose. Hima, what's this? Shikamaru asked curiously as he held up the drawing. Oh. I had this dream where I was pulled to another dimension and me and a robot doggy saved some heroes so they could save the world. Himawari said with a bright smile after she swallowed her eggs. This got bewildered looks from Naruto, Shikamaru and Lee. I told you cartoons and video games would rot her brain, Shikamaru said with a sigh at this as he put the drawing down. Oh hush Unkai Shika, Naruto said with a dismissive wave of his hand as he didn't see Himawari having an imagination as a bad thing. Yeah, and don't think I didn't see you playing Pikmin, Unkai, Himawari said as she went back to her food. Little traitor, Shikamaru grumbled under his breath as Naruto and Lee looked at him at this. This got laughs from Naruto and Lee as they continued to eat before they left. Later at Eden. Later, Naruto and Himawari were making their way to the soccer field which was next to Eden Academy with Shikamaru and Lee close behind. Himawari was wearing what looked like a soccer uniform which had the school's name on it and the number 09 on the back. As they approached the soccer field, Himawari spotted Sarada and Chocho, who were in their own soccer uniforms and were with some other kids, one of which was a boy around their age who had short brown hair and was wearing goggles on his forehead. Go ahead Hima, just remember to listen to your coach. Me and Unkai, Lee and Shika will be with the other parents, Naruto said as he patted her on the head before he pointed at the bleacher seats nearby where the adults were sitting and Shikamaru and Lee were approaching. More specifically, Lee was talking to Mandy, who had shown up with her mother obviously to watch Candy, who was also here with her friends. Himawari nodded at this before she ran over to her friends. As Himawari ran over to her friends, the boy that was talking to them noticed her running over and froze after seeing her while a small blush appeared on his face. Hey Hima! Chocho yelled, greeting the young Uzumaki as she ran over to them. Glad to see you showed up. Konohamaru here said he needed 3 more for his team, Sadera said as she waved at her friend before gesturing to the boy who had been talking to her in Chocho. Oh hi. I'm Himawari Uzumaki, nice to meet you, Himawari said as she waved at Konohamaru while greeting him like Sam had taught her. Konohamaru quickly shook his head at this to clear his head before he looked at Himawari with a nervous smile. Hey, I'm Konohamaru Sarutobi, he said, introducing himself. Like Mr. Sarutobi? Himawari asked curiously, referring to the principal of the school. He's his grandpa, Sadera said, deciding to explain this to her friend. Himawari's eyes widened at this while Konohamaru rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. As this was happening, Irika, who was wearing a coach uniform, blew a whistle, getting all the kids' attention. Okay everyone, now that you are all here we can get started. Candy, Konohamaru, you have your teams? He asked as he looked at the 2 children. Yes sir, Konohamaru said as he nodded at Irika. Good, let's get started, Irika said as he nodded back at them as the 2 teams separated. Are you okay with being goalie? Konohamaru asked Himawari as they approached their side of the field. My Otto-san's friend Alex taught me a bit about this, Himawari said with a smile as she ran to her team's goal while the rest of her team got ready to play. With Naruto. Meanwhile, with Naruto, he was sitting in the stands with the other adults along with Shikamaru and Lee. Yeah, you better walk away, Naruto grumbled as he watched Konohamaru as he talked to Himawari before he went to get ready for the game to start. Oh, grow up Papa Bear, Shikamaru said as he handed Naruto a soda which he took. That your little niece? She's adorable, Mandy said to Lee with a smile as spotted Himawari, who was playing as goalie for her team. Yeah, that's her. She's been practicing as goalie with a friend of Naruto's for this, so here's hoping she does okay, Lee said as they watched the game. Oh. What friend? Mandy asked curiously as she didn't know a lot about Lee, so she figured she should ask. Sorry we're late. Something came up last minute, Sam said as Clover and Alex approached. I didn't miss Hima clocking that brat again, did I? Clover asked as she sat on Naruto's left side while Sam took the right. Mandy's eyebrow twitched violently at this as she glared at Clover. Clover, Sam said as she slightly scowled at this. Looks like Hima's gonna have her first chance to block for her team, Lee said, deciding to try and change the subject as Candy had the ball and was making a beeline for the other team's goal. Go Hima! Alex cheered as she waved her fist in the air. As Candy approached the goal, she smirked as she went to the right bit at the last second, switched to the left and kicked the ball, hoping to trick Himawari into blocking the wrong way. Himawari of course used her mind reading and saw this coming, so she quickly ran at the ball and tackled it as it approached her. This got some cheers from her team as she stood up with the ball and threw it to her team. Nice instincts, Uzumaki! Irika yelled with a nod as the game continued. Konohamaru smiled as he held out his hand for a high five for Himawari, who smiled and gave him a high five. Naruto's neck cracked to the side, his eyes wide with a strange smile across his face as he saw this. Naruto, are you okay? Sam asked, poking his shoulder. Oh, looks like little Hima has a boyfriend. Clover teased, seeing this. Boyfriend, 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 boyfriend. Those words echoed in Naruto's ears, making him twitch more and more, crushing the soda can in his hand, and stood up. Intervention. Shikamaru and Lee said as they both stood up to grab Naruto. But Sam beat them to it as she grabbed Naruto by his shoulder. Sit down, Sam said as she pulled on him to sit back down. I just want to talk to Dash, Naruto was saying before he paused as Sam gave him a firm look. Sit down, Sam said firmly as her eyes narrowed. Naruto quickly sat down at this as his honed instincts were telling him to obey the redhead, as she wasn't going to take no for an answer. Lee blinked in surprise at this while Shikamaru raised an eyebrow, seeing this as they both sat back down. Later after the game, all the children were talking to their parents or guardians for a bit. Did you see me, Otosan? I blocked the ball, Himawari said as she ran over to Naruto and his group. I did see, Naruto said as he smiled at his daughter while he handed her a juice box which she took. Yeah, you did good, Sqr, probably better than Alex when she was a kid, Clover said as she smiled at the child. Hey, it's not my fault she's talented with predicting what those kids are gonna do, Alex said as she crossed her arms and pouted. More freaky, Candy grumbled under her breath as she walked past them and towards her mom and sister. This caused Himawari to pause before she frowned a bit. What you say, you little dash, Clover was yelling before Alex covered her mouth. Ignore her, sweetheart, some people are just difficult, Sam said as she smiled at Himawari. Yeah, you say that, but who was it who threw down with Mindy back in elementary school? Clover said with a raised eyebrow as Alex let her go. Sam blushed at this before she gave her friend an annoyed look while Himawari looked at her with a look of awe. Okay Hima, let's go home, you had a big day, Shikamaru said as he stepped forward. You need the bathroom before we go? Naruto asked as they all grabbed their bags. Himawari nodded at this as she looked around for a restroom and soon spotted one which was near the school's outdoor swimming pool. I'll take her, Clover said as she grabbed Himawari's hand. This is my chance to show Naruto I can be responsible, she thought to herself happily as she led Himawari to the restroom. Himawari tilted her head in confusion at this as she didn't understand why Clover would want to prove she's responsible. After a few moments Himawari left the restroom, and as she walked over to Clover who was looking at her phone to go back to the others, she paused as she heard something. Help! I can't swim. Himawari looked around at this and paused as she saw that in the school's swimming pool near the surface of the water was splashing. Himawari quickly ran through the gate into the pool area which was unlocked and ran towards the pool before she jumped into the pool. Hima. Where you go, Himawari? Clover said as she looked up from her phone and saw her running into the pool area before she yelled loudly after seeing her jump into the pool and quickly ran after her. This caused everyone at the soccer field to look over to see what was going on. Meanwhile with Himawari, she was in the water slowly trying to get to another child who was in the pool trying to get to the surface, but obviously the other child didn't know how to swim. Before Himawari could try to do anything, Clover jumped into the pool and quickly swam over to her and grabbed her before spotting the other child and swimming over to the child and grabbing her too before making her way to the surface. Clover quickly swam to the side of the pool and got Himawari and the other child out of the pool while other adults started to enter the pool area. Himawari! Naruto yelled as he ran over and picked up his daughter to hug her. Someone get some towels. Who left the gate unlocked? Irika yelled to some staff nearby who quickly ran off to get some towels. What the hell, Clover? Sam yelled as she and Alex helped Clover out of the pool. Hey, she's the one who ran off and jumped into the pool. Clover yelled as she took a towel and started to try and dry her hair. Himawari, what were you thinking? Naruto asked as he put his daughter down while Alex put a towel on her head and started to try and dry her hair. She needed help, Himawari said as she let Alex dry her hair. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this before he looked to the side and saw the other child who was being hugged and dried off by her parents. Reckless like her dad, Shikamaru said with a sigh at this before Lee flicked his ear. Did I do bad? Himawari asked as Alex stopped drying her hair. No, you did good, but next time you should have asked Clover to help you since obviously we can count on her, Naruto said as he looked at Clover with a smile. Clover blinked in surprise at this before she smiled a bit as she blushed a little at the praise. Later. After everyone had explained what had happened to Irika and the other staff members, Naruto and the rest of the group were now home. Well, that janitor is fired, leaving the gate unlocked, Clover said with a scowl of annoyance as they all sat down in Naruto's living room. Well, at least Hima and you were there to save that kid, Lee said as he entered the kitchen to make them something. Why did the principal put a star on me? Himawari asked as she pointed at the star pin which seemed to be very well made and sparkled a bit. That's an achievement star. Your school likes to reward excellence and achievement. I think if you get enough you end up in the school's Hall of Fame, Naruto said as he helped Lee. Though that's usually given to the older kids who are actually trying to achieve, Shikamaru said as he recalled some information he had read while looking into the school. So it's for bragging rights? Clover asked with a slight smile. Good girls don't brag, Sam said as she gave Clover a look of disapproval. Oh, let her bask a bit, Sam, Clover said as she shook her head at this. Do I get a reward for doing good? Himawari asked Naruto, who paused at this. How's about a ice cream sundae with any flavor you want? You would give me that if I ask anyway, Himawari said with a pout. This got some laughs from the girls and chuckles from Shikamaru and Lee. Okay, what do you want, a new game? Naruto asked as he lightly chuckled at his daughter effectively calling him out. I want a pet. Himawari yelled with a bright smile as she thought of the dream she had where she was helped by a robot doggy. A pet? Lee asked, raising an eyebrow at this. I want a pet. Himawari yelled with a smile at this. A pet could help teach her responsibility, Sam said as she rubbed her chin in thought while looking at Naruto, who had final day. I'll think on it, but no cats. He said as while he didn't mind dogs he couldn't stand cats. Shikamaru snorted at this as he stiffened his laughter, still sore over that cat burglar getting one over on him, that and Tora-chan back at the orphanage, he thought as he laughed mentally before he shuddered slightly at the memory of the cat that had attacked them as kids for stealing her toys. Thank you, Himawari said happily as she hugged his leg, making him laugh. What about me? Do I get a reward? Clover asked with a raised eyebrow. Sam rolled her eyes at this while Alex shook her head at her friend. Haha, what, you want cookies from that bakery? I swear they are rip-off artists, Naruto said with a fake laugh. I think she'd like a date, Himawari said innocently as she read Clover's mind and saw what she would like to ask for but hesitated. Ahahaha. Kids. But I wouldn't say no, Clover said with a forced laugh and a blush before she composed herself and smiled at Naruto, trying to make herself appealing to him. You know what? Why not? Naruto said after a few moments of thought. Sam, Alex and Clover yelled in surprise, the first two glaring at Clover a bit. What, she saved her life, it's the least I can do, but seeing as this is a first date, this is just us as friends of course, Naruto said as he looked at Clover, wanting to be clear with her. I'll take it, Clover said with a smile at this. I'll get him as a boyfriend yet, she thought with a determined grin. Otosan, what's a boyfriend? Himawari asked curiously. Not for you until after you're married, Naruto said as if he had been rehearsing this. This got laughs from Lee, Clover and Alex while Sam rolled her eyes at the blonde's response. It's nothing, Hima, but tell your friend Kono to watch his back, Shikamaru said as he chuckled at this while Naruto made a killing gesture under his neck at him. Later. It was now bedtime for Himawari and she was in her room getting ready for bed before Naruto would come in to tuck her in for the night. After she put on her PJs she approached her bed, but as she approached it a small tear in the dimensions appeared and what looked like a book fell onto the bed along with a small drone. Oh, robot fairy? Himawari asked as she looked around suspiciously before the small drone scanned the entire room. Room secure, playing message, the drone said with a female voice before what looked like a hologram of what looked like an older version of Himawari projected out of the drone, said Himawari looked to be about 10 or 11 years old. Hey SQR, surprised that multivariate stuff was real, and after thinking on it I decided to send you this book. It's on meditation techniques. Kit said it should help you develop your special talent. No need to thank me, just keep this multiverse stuff a secret, okay? The older version of Himawari said as she smiled and gave a thumbs up before the hologram disappeared and the drone turned to dust, leaving Himawari alone. Himawari smiled at this before she grabbed the book and looked at the cover which said Meditation for Dummies, causing her to pout cutely before she sat on her bed, opened the book and started to attempt to read it. Are you ready for bed, sweetie? Naruto asked as he entered the room and paused, seeing her reading a book. Yes, Otosan, Himawari said as she closed the book and put it on her side table. Naruto approached the bed and looked at the book, Meditation. Where you get that? He asked as he found that a little odd but didn't have a problem with it as meditation helped build focus. A friend suggested I learn it. Help me focus. Himawari said quickly, reading Naruto's mind so she had a good excuse. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this before shrugging as he figured a lot of the kids at Eden were more advanced than other kids. Somewhere outside California. Meanwhile, outside the city, what looked like a big truck which had a purple snake painted on its side was making its way into the city. The back of the truck was filled with cages which had dogs and cats inside who were all barking or meowing in protest. "Shut up back there, DMN it," a male yelled from the front of the truck. As the dogs and cats provided to protest inside one of the cages was what looked like a small munchkin cat. What stood out about this cat was that it had gray fur, but on the end of its paws, tail and ears its fur was slightly blue. "I said shut the hell up," the same male yelled from the front of the truck. "Watch the road you idiot," a female voice from up front yelled before the truck suddenly jerked to the side, causing some or the cages to jerk around. More specifically, the cage that held the cat fell over and broke open, causing the cat to get loose. After shaking itself, it looked around and soon paused as it looked at the back door, which it obviously couldn't reach. The cat then glared at the door and growled in anger as it was engulfed in blue fire before. Crash! This caused the front door to open and what looked like a young Asian male in his early 20s came into the back of the truck. He had slightly spiky black hair. This was Zaku. "Okay, what the hell is the problem, what the hell?" Zaku was saying before he saw that the back door was burst open as if something massive had clawed its way out. After looking out the back door, Zaku saw the small cat running down the road. "SHT. Kin!" Zaku yelled as he tried to get past the tipped-over cages to go after the cat. This caused a young Asian woman to get out of truck and run out to the back of the truck to see what was going on. She had long black hair. This was Kin. "What the hell happened?" Kin yelled, seeing the destroyed back door of the truck. "One of the master's experiments." Zaku yelled as he point 3D behind Kin. This caused Kin to look behind her and see the small blue cat running off. "Get back here," Kin yelled as she ran after the cat down the road. Soon though she stopped and started to breathe for breath before she looked up and saw that on the long stretch of road there was no sign of the small cat. "DMN it," Kin growled out as she knew her and Zaku's MSTR wouldn't be happy about this. As Kin started to make her way back to the truck, she walked past a overturned trash can which had the small cat hiding in it. And after a few moments the cat yawned and went to sleep. The next morning, the small cat that had escaped from the back of the van was still asleep in the overturned trash can as a garbage truck slowly approached it. The cat's ears twitched hearing the car approach, causing the cat to wake up and walk out of the trash can just as the trash man on the garbage truck was about to grab the trash can. Weird-looking cat," the man said with a shrug as he grabbed the trash cash. The cat walked down the sidewalk looking around at the neighborhood she was in, and as it turned a corner to walk into a yard, its path was blocked by a bigger cat. "Hiss!" The bigger cat yowled as it hissed and swung its paw in warning at the unknown cat in its territory. The cat jumped back in surprise at this before in a burst of flame engulfed it, and a big shadow loomed over the bigger cat. The bigger cat looked up at the figure and its jaw dropped before the cat ran off towards its owner's house and started to scratch at the door, desperate to get away. As quickly as it happened though, there was another burst of flames and the cat was back to normal, stumbling away, dizzy from what it had just done. The cat soon wandered over to another yard and saw what looked like an older man using a leaf blower to clean up his yard. The cat watched this for a few moments before it approved the human to see if it would like her before the human turned toward it and sent her flying back a bit with his leaf blower. The man blinked in surprise at seeing the smaller than normal cat with blue fur scamper off after giving him an annoyed look. With Naruto. It was Sunday morning and Naruto was walking downstairs after getting dressed for the day and saw Lee in the kitchen making breakfast while Shikamaru was sitting at the dining table looking over his laptop. "So what's on the agenda today?" Naruto asked Shikamaru as he knew he was probably looking over something important. "I'm looking up animal shelters for you to go to so you can find a pet for Himawari," Shikamaru said as he continued to look at his laptop. Naruto looked over Shikamaru's shoulder and saw several pictures of different animals available to adopt, and also saw that Shikamaru was also cross-referencing the best breeds for children and the best vets. "Just make sure you find a place that has a good reputation," Naruto said with a nod at this. "Just let me work," Shikamaru said as he continued to focus on his work. "Hey Naruto, can you go get the paper?" "It should be here by now," Lee said as he looked at Naruto while turning some sausage he was cooking. "I'm on it. Where is Himawari?" Naruto said as he walked towards the front door, pausing to look for his daughter. Still asleep, Shikamaru said as he shook his head a bit. Must have stayed up reading that book, Naruto said with a sigh as he walked out the door to get the newspaper just as it arrived on the sidewalk. As he walked towards the newspaper, unknown to him, he was being watched by the cat that had escaped from the van last night and was wandering the neighborhood looking for a home. The cat watched Naruto for a few moments, and after Naruto picked up the paper and opened it to read it a bit while he walked back towards the house, the cat ran out of the bush and started to follow Naruto closely from behind as he approached the house. Naruto paused and turned around to look behind him curiously as he felt he was being watched, but he saw nothing as the cat slipped by him and walked into the house. After a few moments, Naruto shrugged and walked into the house, unaware of the new house guest he now had. With the cat. The cat quickly ran into the house and hid under a nearby coffee table and looked around at the house and stopped as it spotted Lee approaching Shikamaru with a plate of food while he was still looking at his laptop. Take a break, food will get cold, Lee said as he went back to get everyone else's food ready. In a minute, Shikamaru said as he continued to look at the screen and nod at his plate of eggs, sausage and a blueberry muffin. The cat's whiskers twitched smelling the food, and seeing that the humans were distracted, it quickly ran out from under the coffee table and jumped onto the dining table and snatched the muffin before running off. Okay, all done now. Hey, where's my muffin? Shikamaru asked as he closed his laptop before he looked at his plate of food and saw that he was missing said item. Maybe Naruto stole it like old times, Lee said with a chuckle as he looked at Naruto, who was coming back inside with the paper. I didn't steal anything, I was getting the paper, Naruto said as he raised an eyebrow at this. Yeah sure, open your mouth, Shikamaru said as he gave the blonde a look of disbelief before grabbing Naruto by his jaw. Oi! Don't I get a phone call first? Naruto yelled at this. As the adult squabbled unseen to them, the cat was making its way upstairs after finishing the muffin it had just stolen. It wandered down the hall and soon it saw a door was left slightly open and approached it and pushed it open before entering it. After looking around a bit, it saw that it was obviously a kid's room and saw a still asleep Himawari in her bed along with her book on meditation. The cat slightly smirked seeing a child as it figured a kid would love having her as a pet. The cat then walked over to Himawari's bed before jumping into the bed and approving the asleep girl and started to nuzzle and paw at her face in an attempt to wake her up. Huh? What's that? Himawari grumbled out as she woke up before blinking a bit before she saw what had woken her up. Meow. The cat said before she started to nuzzle into Himawari while starting to purr. Himawari blinked in surprise before she smiled. It's a kitty, she yelled happily before she pulled the cat into a hug. The cat slightly wheezed at this as the cat hadn't expected the little girl to just hug her. Otosan must have gotten you for me to surprise me. Himawari cheered happily before she ran downstairs carrying the cat. Back downstairs. I said I didn't take your muffin, now let go of my jaw. Naruto yelled as he tried to pry Shikamaru's hands off his face. A likely story, Shikamaru said with a firm look as he inspected the inside of Naruto's mouth for evidence. What are you, 5? There are plenty of other muffins, so will you sit down so Naruto can go get Himawari for breakfast? Lee said as she placed a pan of muffins on the table. As this was happening, Himawari ran downstairs carrying the cat she had found. Thank you, Otosan. Can I name her? Himawari asked with a big smile on her face as she held up the cat. This caused the three adults to look at Himawari and the cat, surprised, more specifically Naruto's eyes widened seeing the cat. Oh hell, yow. Naruto was saying before he was cut off by Lee slapping the back of his head. Language, Lee said with a firm tone at his friend. Don't give me that. You know I have a thing with cats. Naruto whispered to Lee. Hima, where did you find that cat? Shikamaru asked as he looked at the cat his adopted niece was holding. I found her in my bed, isn't her fur pretty? Himawari asked with a smile as she held up the cat so Shikamaru could see her. Shikamaru inspected the cat closely before the cat burped in his face, sending muffin crumbs into his face. Aw, she had breakfast already, Lee said with a smile at this. Cute, Shikamaru said as he wiped his face while giving the cat an unamused look. As this happened, there was a knock on the door. Thank you for the distraction, Naruto thought to himself as he approached the door and answered it, revealing Sam, Alex and Clover on the other side. Morning Naruto, Clover said with a smile at her fellow blonde. We bright donuts for breakfast, Alex said as she held up a box as they entered the house. Sorry we didn't have anything for breakfast at our place so they decided to come here, Sam said to Naruto as she sighed at her friends. It's fine, this isn't the most annoying thing that's happened today if you can believe it, Naruto said as he closed the door after the girls were all inside. It's not even noon, what could have Sam was asking before she was cut off. Sam, Alex, Clover, look at my new kitty. Himawari yelled as she held up the cat for the three girls to see. Aw, it's adorable. Alex said with a smile at the girl and her pet. Wow, you work fast when you make a promise, this mean our date is soon? Clover asked. With a grin at Naruto. Naruto said with a small blush at this. That's an odd shade of fur for a cat, isn't it? Sam asked Shikamaru, referring to the lightly blue shade that the cat's fur was. From what I can see, it's most likely a munchkin cat with some kind of defect that makes its fur look like that, Shikamaru said as he looked at his laptop. The cat hissed at Shikamaru at this, obviously annoyed at the word defect. Looks like it got into some dyes, but it's not bad, Clover said with smile at the cat. I don't know about it, Himawari, Naruto said as he gave the cat an annoyed look as it sniffed at the box of donuts that the girls had brought. Please, Himawari said, putting on her best puppy dog eyes. The cat looked, noticing Himawari doing her puppy dog eyes, so she put on her best begging eyes with Himawari. That cat is good, Alex said with a grin, seeing how quick it imitated the little girl. Gah. Okay. Put those away. Naruto said as he felt his will instantly break with this double attack on him. Yay! Himawari cheered as she held up her arms while the cat went back to sniffing at the box of donuts. Weakling, Shikamaru said as he kept his eye on his laptop, causing Naruto's eyebrows to twitch in annoyance. What are you going to name her, Hima? Sam asked as she helped Himawari sit down at the table for breakfast. Thinking of names is hard, Himawari said as she looked at the cat who pulled her head out of the box of donuts with a eclair in her mouth. Hey! Paws off the sweats. Clover yelled at the cat, causing the pet to run off the table away from her with its prize. I say we call it fat as, ow. Naruto was grumbling under his breath before Sam flicked his ear, giving him a look of warning. What? Himawari asked curiously, seeing this. Nothing, sweetie, maybe you can name her something that refers to her fur. Sam asked as she turned to look at Himawari with a smile on her face. Already have it, Shikamaru said as he grabbed his laptop and turned it around, showing what looked like an image of painting of giant cat with two tails that was made of blue flames that was very similar to the color of the cat that Clover was chasing. Matatabi? Lee asked, taking a look at the laptop. Ah, the two-tailed cat, Naruto said, nodding. I'm understanding, as he remembered the story of this cat from the stories Tsunade would tell them back at the orphanage. Mio, the cat said after it finished the eclair it had stolen. Well, she seems to like it. Alex said with a smile as she pet the cat. Okay, your forever name is Mataba. Wait, Mata, Himawari said before she started to stumble over her words, seeing as this name was complicated for her. I think she will be okay with Tabi as a nickname, sweetheart, Sam said with a smile at this. That or sneak thief, Clover grumbled under her breath. The now named Matatabi looked at Clover before she raised her tail at her and... Did she just? Clover muttered as Matatabi snickered at her as a bad smell filled the room. Oh, Tabi is baking brownies, Himawari said as she pinched her nose. Great, she's a smart Alec, just what we need, Naruto thought as he pinched his nose while Sam and Alex ran to open a window. The next day. It was the next day, and after getting everything they would need to take care of a cat and taking her to the vet, Matatabi was now a member of the Uzumaki family. Currently Himawari was in her room getting ready for school while the new cat was sitting on her new cat tower watching her owner curiously wondering what the little human was doing. I'm going to school, that's where me and Otosan go during the day, it's where we both learn all day though. Otosan goes to the collage with Sam, Alex and Clover, Himawari explained to the cat. The cat raised an eyebrow at this before she shrugged and went to climb down from her tower, but as she climbed down, Hima, we're going to be late. Naruto yelled upstairs, causing the cat to lose its focus and fall off the cat tower and land inside the open backpack waiting at the bottom of the cat tower. Coming Otosan. Himawari yelled as she quickly ran over to her backpack and closed it before putting it on and running out of her room, unaware of the stowaway inside her backpack. Later with Sam, Alex and Clover. Meanwhile with the three spies, they were on their way to campus after waking up late. DMN Clover, I told you not to turn off your alarm. Sam yelled as they quickly ran towards the campus. Yell at Clover later, we're almost there, Alex yelled as they ran past the school fountain, but as they passed it the top of it opened and what looked like a hose came out of it and started to SCK up the three spies. DMN Jerry. Clover yelled as they three of them were sucked away. Jerry's office. The three spies dropped from an opening in the ceiling into a couch while Jerry was waiting behind his desk in front of them. Hello girls, have a good weekend? Jerry asked as he greeted the three spies. Normally I would read you the riot act, but seeing as you didn't interpret our weekend I'll give you a pass, Clover said as she adjusted her hair after their fall. Well, I was busy gathering information for your next mission, Jerry said as the wall behind him opened up, revealing a giant screen which showed what looked like a warehouse and what looked like a truck that had a cobra painted on the side of it, and what stood out was that the back of the truck was destroyed. What's the job, Joe? Alex asked curiously as they all looked at the screen. We have gotten word that a high-priority Whoop target has been in setting up shop here in the city. Some of his experiments have recently been moved to this warehouse, Jerry said as the screen showed images of Kin and Zaku carrying several cages into the warehouse. Experimenting on animals? Alex yelled, seeing that the cages were full of different kinds of animals. It's not Kurama and his crew, is it? Sam asked as she slightly scowled at this. No, but Kurama and his team have clashed with the leader of this crew on occasion. From what our sources have said, your mission is to infiltrate this warehouse and gather information on the location on their boss, Jerry said as he shook his head at Sam before the screen showed an image of what looked like office building that was in the second floor of the warehouse. What's our gear? Clover asked as the girls all stood up ready to go. You will have the standard gear. Be ready to possibly fight if caught, as we don't know what kind of reinforcements are there, Jerry said as a wall opened up revealing the three spies' uniforms and their equipment. What about the animals? Alex asked as they walked over to their equipment and grabbed them. We have the information we need to shut the warehouse down and rescue the animals, but we know when we show up they will erase all information they have on their boss. Hence why you need us to go in first, Sam said with a nod of understanding. Where we heading for this? Clover asked as they headed for the back room to change. Not far, the warehouse is in a more seedy neighborhood of California, Jerry said as he sat down in his chair. Great, I'll be home in time for my date, Clover said with an audible smile on her face as she had set up her date with Naruto for later on this week. With Himawari. Meanwhile with Himawari, she was being dropped off at school by Naruto along with the other kids. Have a good day, sweetie, Naruto said with a smile as he helped Himawari out of the car. I will, be sure to feed Tabi and scoop her litter, Himawari said with a smile as she thought about her new pet. I'm so investing in an auto feeder and cleaner for that furball, Naruto thought as he nodded at this. Himawari heard this and slightly sweat dropped as she could tell that Naruto was annoyed by Matatabi, but she said nothing to this as she spotted Sarada and Chocho and smiled as she quickly ran over to them. As she did, she made her backpack shake, making the hidden cat inside meow in protest. Himawari asked as she paused, running over to her friends and looked over her shoulder at her backpack. As she did this, Matatabi poked her head out of the backpack and looked at Himawari before looking around curiously at the school campus. Tabi? What are you doing here? Himawari said in a panic. Matatabi blinked as she tilted her head as her tail swayed behind her. You fell off your kitty tree and into my backpack. I thought cats were graceful, Himawari said as she read the cat's mind. Hey Hima, we're going to be late for. Is that a cat in your backpack? Konohamaru asked as he approached Himawari from behind before he paused as he saw the cat. What cat? Himawari yelled as she quickly closed her backpack and looked at Konohamaru with a nervous smile. Matatabi mowed in protest as she pawed the lid of the backpack away so she could look around some more. That cat, oi. Watch the claws. Konohamaru said as he pointed at Matatabi, who pawed at his finger, making him pull his finger back. Hey Hima, what's going? Aw, it's adorable. Chocho was asking as she approached before she saw Matatabi and smiled. What kind of cat is it? Konohamaru asked as he checked his finger for any scratches. They have different kinds of cats. Himawari asked curiously as she tilted her head curiously. For what I can observe, it is a female munchkin cat with an odd fur color, Sadara said as she adjusted her glasses. Munchkin? That means midget, right? Ow. Konohamaru was asking before Matatabi scratched his leg a bit in warning before Chocho giggled as she grabbed a tree branch and held it out and watched Matatabi trying to catch it. The bell is going off soon, you should all get to class, Sarutobi said as he approached the 4 children who all scrambled in a panic to hide the cat in Himawari's backpack. Yes, Ajizan. Konohamaru said as he stood at attention while blocking the adults' view of Himawari hiding the cat. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow at this but said nothing as the kids quickly ran past him into the school before he followed after them. Unseen to them across the street was a van that looked the same as the van that Matatabi had escaped from, only the back wasn't destroyed. Great, a bunch of brats have one of the boss's test subjects, Kin said with a scowl as they had been searching all over town and had by chance spotted the cat in question with Himawari and her friends. Well, it is cute when it's not tearing SHT up, hey. Zaku said before Kin slugged him in the shoulder. Then you can call the boss and tell him, you idiot. Kin yelled as she handed him a video phone. Fine. You think won't? Zaku said as he pushed the call button, and after a few rings an image of a man with pale skin, long black hair and snake-like eyes appeared on the screen. What do you have to report? The man asked with a slight hiss to his voice, making Zaku sweat nervously. Sir, we have found the escaped experiment, but, Zaku was saying before he trailed off as the snake-like man glared at him. Kin scoffed at this and snatched the video phone from her partner. Sir, the experiment seems to have been adopted as a pet by some kid going to the private school here in town. I'm sending footage to confirm, Kin said with a calm tone as she sent a picture of Matatabi and Himawari over the video phone. After a few moments the snake-like man's eyes slightly widened at this, seeing the picture. Sir? Kin asked, not expecting silence from their boss. Capture both the escaped experiment and the child and keep them at the warehouse. I'll bothers by tonight myself to see them, the snake-like man said. Mstr Orochimaru, why would you want some brat? Haku asked, raising an eyebrow at this. Just do it, look, just do this and he'll gladly pay you both 5 times your yearly salary, the man yelled before he took a calming breath and smiled in an unsettling way before he hung up. This got wide eyes from the 2 henchmen before they both smiled at the idea of getting paid so much. With the snake-like man. In a dark office the man was looking over some old files before he stopped as he found a file that was labeled Test Subject 007 and smiled as he looked at the picture inside the file, which was of Himawari, who was in a lab coat and frowning as she was being put through testing by doctors. Finally, I have found her. Soon I'll have the power that any leader would kill to have, Orochimaru said with a smile as he quickly moved to leave for California. Himawari woke up. She started walking around Beverly Hills without much care in the world as she does. Several cards fly by showing Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon smiling, Biwako crossing her arms with a stern look on her face, Irika opening his desk and being surprised by an explosion covering him with chalk. The little girl soon arrived at the bus stop, hopping in the bus, shaking her head as if to the beat of music. Before arriving in school she walks through the halls greeting teachers and students. As she walks by candy stands in front of her laughing and pointing, Himawari waves her finger and suddenly she's soaked by the sprinklers. She sits in class eagerly raising her hand, smiling as her blue eyes shimmer, the smiling face of Naruto reflected in her eyes. Himawari sits alone in a dark room when a light shines and Naruto offers up his hand. The two walk through Beverly Hills smiling as they arrive at Lee's garage. Himawari looking around eagerly when she accidentally pulls a SWCH, causing the van to fall on Lee, making him kick his feet in panic while Naruto struggles to help him. Himawari sits at the table, Shikamaru helping with her homework while Naruto is busy cooking and Lee is setting the plates. Everything goes black as multicolored lights flash on and off. Himawari runs into the living room where Sam, Alex, and Clover stand waiting, the four eagerly dancing to the beat of the music. The girls stop dancing before taking Himawari into their arms in a motherly group hug. Himawari looks in awe as Sam shows her around a museum. Alex spins around holding up Hima as they play in the park. Clover gushes with joy seeing Himawari try on a yellow flower pattern sundress. Himawari and Konohamaru run through the finish line of the three-legged race while the girls were cheering loudly. Naruto was held back by Lee kicking his legs out, screaming at the boy to stay away from his sunflower. Himawari stands on stage with a ribbon reading Spelling Bee Champion. Naruto and the others clap their hands while Shikamaru cries tears of joy holding up a giant flag with Himawari's face. Himawari performs a judo flip on Candy as she screams out in terror, Lee and Alex raising up their fists in victory. Naruto flips through his phone showing Himawari in various clothes. Clover got her smiling warmly. He walks up to her room and is shocked to find it empty. He searches around and arrives in the living room to see Himawari huddled close to Sam, Alex and Clover, Naruto kissing her forehead before laying a blanket on her. Naruto holds up Himawari, Clover wrapping around his right arm, Sam standing in front with Alex on his left side with peace sign. The four stand together as a flash goes off. Naruto stands over the rooftop smiling at the photo before. Placing on his mask and jumping into action. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author KFB Anime 87 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.